Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Security Repo Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sharing our security journey with us. Thanks for all those likes and subscribes as well. Really do appreciate it. This week, we have a very special guest, Matt Torbin. He's been a driving force in secure software development for over 20 years, influencing all aspects of the software development lifecycle. He began his career as a full stack engineer with a focus on UI, UX. It's always an interesting background. We'll get into that later. He created some great user experiences from some very well-renowned brands out there. On the security side, he's presented at conferences such as DEF CON, BSides Las Vegas, Day of Shecurity, which we're going to talk about a lot today. Authored privacy articles for 2600 Magazine, the Hacker Quarterly, and held key volunteer roles for initiatives including Packet Hacking Village, Day of Security, and BSides San Francisco. Matt, thank you so much for being on the Security Repo Podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very glad you're here, and I do really want to get into the Day of Security. It's the main reason I wanted you on the show, but I'm always really interested in people's security journey. Like, you started away from security and worked your way into it, and then a presenter and organizer. What's that journey look like?
So it's interesting because I like to tell this story quite a bit. I started life out academically as a jazz guitar player. And after about 2 or 3 years of that, the professors pulled me aside and they said, this jazz thing, kind of terrible at this. You're not good at playing jazz, but computers you seem to have like some skills with. Maybe you should consider this other school. And at that time, it was web development. The school was just starting a web development program. And so I got in with this. And so for the first 18 years of my career, I was a front-end full stack developer. But I always had that kind of curiosity to toy with things, toy with software, toy with operating systems. And I had always written it off as, this is my curiosity and just kind of my prankish ways until I went to my first DEF CON, and I think it was 2013, possibly 2014. It was DEF CON 22 for what it's worth. And I got to see that this is an actual career that people do and they get involved in, and I was smitten ever since.
So, Day of Security, that is why I brought you on the show. So let's just start with that. For people out there that have never heard of this before, what is it?
So Day of Security is a one-day conference where we bring women and non-binary folks in to bring more opportunities and more mentorship, more availability to folks who may be thinking about security as a career but don't quite know how they fit. And so I'd love to take a minute and tell you the backstory of Day of Security.
Please.
Yeah. So when I joined Lookout many years ago, I used to work for Lookout. I had been working in the DEI space for quite a while, and so I joined the diversity steering committee. And at the time, they had a surplus of funds, and they were trying to figure out how do we use these funds. And so we came up with this idea. I said, okay, well, what if we took 25 women, brought them in for a full day of training in our office, and then raffled off a ticket to DEF CON, just kind of see how that goes. And everyone was like, great, that sounds like an awesome idea. So we put the call out there for 25 attendees, and free of charge, cost nothing. And within 24 hours, we had roughly 120 submissions. And we realized, okay, we have something special here. There's something in the sauce that's special with this. And so we went ahead and had that first event. That fun fact, that first event was called the Security Boot Camp. It wasn't actually called Day of Security. When we did the retro at Lookout after the event, Lookout also saw that this was something very special. And our goal was the next year that we did it to 10x our attendance. And we did that. The next year was roughly 280, if I have the number right, 280 attendees. Tickets were gone within 48 hours for that. And so for the first three events that we did that were in person pre-pandemic, they were massive events. We have had such wonderful opportunities where the way we approached it with organizations is we would say to them, you have a certain amount of money that you give an existing employee to bring in folks to get hired. If you take that amount of money and you donate it, you give it to Day of Security and help us support this organization, not only will you have the opportunity to interview and possibly hire one person, you could interview tens, dozens of people who are going to be potential candidates. And a lot of these organizations, once they saw this real opportunity that, wow, there's this huge untapped market of folks that really want to get into security, and we hadn't yet considered that. It took off from there.
So that first year, pretty straightforward name, boot camp. You think you're signing up for? Hey, come here and learn to code. How has that evolved? What goes on? What are the activities you actually do when you show up to a day of security?
Sure, absolutely. So, just for full transparency and disclosure, I stepped down from the organization in 2021, I believe, and I'll explain why. One of our biggest OKRs for Day of Security was that it is run by women for women, and so that was our final OKR, our gift to Day of Security, to step down and have that run. During the time that we ran it, we had presenters come in from all different walks. I mean, you'll see Amanda Russo is in there. Jason Haddix has come support us. And folks could come and learn all aspects of security, whether it's just basic Burp Suite training, OWASP Top 10, the kind of training that otherwise seemed very unobtainable. The other real value that we wanted to present to folks, and I think it's very intrinsic in the way the industry works today, is to show folks that there is a representation of women in cybersecurity. There are mentors that you can look up to, and there are growth opportunities, and we like to bring them all together. I've seen some very, very, very talented senior folks sit down with attendees for 45 minutes to an hour and just talk about their career opportunities that would just blow my mind otherwise. To have this opportunity to sit and talk to these folks and say, where can my career grow? And to me, that's the biggest value of it. I will give one other little story that I still carry with me. Typically for our Day of Security, I never presented. It was always, again, for women by women, and but I am there. And a young lady came up to me once, and she said, "I want to tell you my story," and I was like, "Great, I would love to hear it." And she said to me that, before coming to Day of Security, she had looked at the security space and wasn't sure if this was for her, and wasn't sure if there was a place for her in this industry, and just almost had basically resigned herself to, this is not for me. And she came to her first Day of Security, and after that subsequently got a job that she was head over heels for, and that was everything that she wanted. And she was so happy that she was almost in tears as she's telling me this story. And I was almost brought to a little bit of an emotional state just hearing this, because here's somebody who had basically said to themselves, this isn't for me for reasons that make no sense, right? I mean, we want everyone to have an opportunity in information security, and then found this space in this community and was able to get the job that they wanted. And that is the goal for us.
That is a really awesome story. That is one of the goals of this show, and that's why I love talking about people's security journey, is there's this misconception that, I don't have the right background for security. And that's the one lesson I have learned time and time again, is there is no such thing as a traditional background. People come from all walks of life. People come from all sorts of former jobs, former focuses. As long as they have that desire in them to work in security, there's a place for you. That's kind of one of the awesome parts of this industry. But I definitely understand that feeling of, I'm not sure this is for me, and it can feel a little gatekeepy if you're just looking at it from the outside. You think, I'm not a lead hacker. So maybe this is a good time to ask, like, what advice would you give people out there that are in that position? Like, what advice could you share of, like, hey, come to Day of Security. If you can't make that particular event, like, what other advice would you give them?
So one thing I do, and I still actively work with Security, I mentor through the organization, but I mentor free of charge. And I do this for folks who reach out to me and say, hey, I'd like to sit down and chat with you. Not a problem. What I would say is there's always, like you said, there's always a spot. There's always that opportunity. And if someone in your professional space is telling you no, or telling you that this isn't going to work for you, we can help you find the person who will say yes. And it is there, it is available, and there's many people who are willing to help make that happen.
So I got to ask, since you were a speaker at BSides Las Vegas, I was there too. What did you talk about?
So as I've moved into management, this has been my current role right now is my first management role. I've been there for about 5 months ish. And one of the things that I thought about when I thought about how I want to approach management, I've been into security and technology for 26 years at this point, quite a while. And I look at the systems in our paradigm that are broken, and hiring is one of those processes. Especially the technical interview is broken. More times than not, when I am mentoring folks, it's how to get around the broken interview process. And I wanted to approach it a little bit differently. I wanted to approach it with, how do we fix the interview process? So internally to my organization, one of the things that we've been developing is this concept of building technical interviews based on role playing. And so the entire kit that I built, which is, there's a version of it that's public, which is available at, actually I have one of my stickers here from the talk, board2hack.com. So if you go out there, you'll go to my GitLab repo, which has the documentation in it. And the concept is this: that you build a fake organization with some security issues, and you allow each of the interviewers to take on a different persona within this organization. So during our interviews, the folks who are doing the interview take on a role as if they work for this organization. And we walk people through real world scenarios, because that's what it is, a threat model, our code review of this fake organization. And I don't want to say it levels the playing field, but I think what it does is does a much more accurate assessment of both IQ and EQ, which in a post-pandemic world where many of our meetings are virtual, hence, you and I are not in the same room, right? This gives, folks an opportunity to really show a multitude of their skills and what they bring to the table as an employee. Yeah, and one of my favorite pieces of this is, when we build, when folks look at the interview kit that we built and they see the threat model and the data flow diagram, it's very vague on purpose. And we like for our interviewers to kind of explore it a little bit. And I'll give you a quasi example, right? There might be a situation where a piece of an infrastructure isn't available, and the interviewee might say, oh, well, I'll just do this, or I'll just add this other thing. And I always love when I see the folks that I interview with go, well, no, you can't do it, because that's going to cause my team extra time, or that's going to, be a cost that we don't want to incur. And they really start to breathe life into those characters. And then it becomes a really wonderful interview for everybody.
That is powerful. That is so powerful, because it's so easy to look at security in isolation.
Right.
You did it wrong or you did it right, versus there's operational reality on the ground that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
People are people, like budgets are budgets. You're going to have to work with that, not against it, not around it, but with it. And that's a very, very powerful message. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all this knowledge with us. And thank you for mentoring people out there in the world. But we are getting toward the end of our program, and we ask all of our guests the same 4 questions to help get to know you a little bit better and standardize the show a bit. So let's just dig right into it. What is your all-time favorite security command line tool?
Currently, it's Daniel Miessler's Fabric, because there's so much that I can do with that. And there's so many, every time I look at that particular tool, I see another automation opportunity that I can really take advantage of. Prior to that, it was aircrack, specifically aerodump. I Wi-Fi and RF is one of those things I don't know nearly enough about, and it's something that I just find really fascinating.
I have never actually heard of Fabric before. I'm going to look that up, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes below. So if you want to check it out as well, open source, I assume.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It is. It's such a wonderful, wonderful thing.
All right, you have been a hiring manager across your career. Do you have a go-to favorite interview question you ask everybody?
I'll say it this way. I like for people to be passionate about what they bring to the table. I like for folks to not look at the interview as like a binary process, but more of a broad spread of skills. So um, I like to hear about other things that you do outside of your work. One of the biggest things that I push for is volunteering at meetups or conferences, as well as presenting. Putting yourself out there and having the opportunity to kind of contribute to contribute to the industry is huge.
All right, best advice, worst advice. This is one of my favorite parts of the show. What is the best security advice you're hearing out there that you've ever heard?
You're never too old. There is no age limit. There is no. If this is something that you want, there are people out there to help you. Just go do it. Um, there's a motivational speaker, Les Brown, and I'm going to not get his quote correct, so bear with me. But the general concept is, if you start something and do it poorly, you're still better than folks who haven't started it at all. And so I highly recommend that folks, if you want it, go do it. There are people out there.
So what's the flip side of that? What is the worst security advice you think going around out there?
Worst advice that I have received, and I will give you just kind of a date range just to show why I think this. Prior to getting into security, prior to starting Dave Security, prior to multiple articles at 2600 and a lot of the presentations that I've done at either DEF CON or BSides, when I was thinking about getting into security, someone told me, aren't you a little too old to be doing this? At this point, you've already established a different career, maybe do this as a hobby. It's too late in your career to be making that change. And I think kind of looking back on what I've accomplished in security, that was probably the worst advice I'd gotten.
That is pretty awful advice. Stay in your lane. Thank you for being here, Matt. It's been an awesome conversation. Very happy to learn about Dave Security and all the other awesome mentoring stuff you're working on. We always like to give our guests the final say. If there's anything else you'd like to share with the audience, anything to get off your chest, anything else to plug, this is your opportunity.
So I'm going to mention one thing that is very near and dear to my heart. And I know they just put out CFPs. I know that the ask for volunteers will be coming up soon, which is for BSides San Francisco. Please go and support BSides San Francisco. They need all the volunteer help they can get. Presenting there is amazing. You have between now and late October. I don't have the exact date in my head, but to submit a CFP. But if you're not going to present, volunteer with them. It's a great community. I can't support them enough. So huge fan of BSides San Francisco.
I will totally echo that as someone who has done both roles of speaker and volunteer safety ops. I have safety ops shirts from a few years now, and it's really awesome feeling to be able to proudly wear those and say, I was there, I helped run this thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, I said last word, but yeah, that's my final word too. All right, thank you so much, Matt, for being here again, and thanks everybody for listening. And go check out your talk. We'll put a link down to that BSides talk below, and link to Data Security, of course. And keep helping to spread that message. Like, subscribes, and share this with all your friends. And if you know anybody that's thinking, I would like to kind of get into security, but I don't know how, send them this episode. Like, maybe this is a good way for them to get introduced. So absolutely. Thanks again.
Thank you.